appreciate you taking the time to join us tonight, our time and morning, your day, to talk about our smart media platform that Artel's been working on for a few years and continuing to develop and making some great strides and releasing new versions. Right now, we're getting ready to release our JPEG 2000 compression version and have plans for the future that we'll talk about as well on this platform. And again, let me thank you and welcome you. Again, my name is Paul Seiden. I'm the Director of International Sales for Artel Video. I have some colleagues with us, Rafael Fonseca, our Director of Marketing. I believe Joanne Pedersen's there, our Inside Sales Director, and Andy Slayton, one of our National Account Managers. And I also want to introduce Dowd. Some of you have joined this through Kevin Dowd's efforts. Kevin is a sales rep partner that we've started working with recently, based out of Hong Kong, who's helping us expand our markets within the APAC region. And sorry, let's see here. I think did I lose my network? Oops, are you back now? Sorry, you could hear me. Sorry, yep. Yeah, I just got a message that my network was lost. Sorry, that was just technology right now. I guess the cable company must be doing an update. Again, Kevin Dowd, thanks Kevin for helping arrange this and bringing some customers into this. And many of you will be hearing from Kevin in the days to come if you haven't heard from him recently. And Kevin, did you want to say anything for a moment, Kevin?
Nope. Just thank you guys for joining the this seminar. So, and if you have any questions at any time, just like Henry just did, just type in the chat on the side. We'll try to answer your questions as we go along with your presentation.
Yep. Yeah, I have, since I'm sharing my screen, I'm not going to, I will look at and see all the questions later. If Andy or Randy or Andy or Ralph are looking at the chat and see questions, feel free to interlude, so that way it's not coming up on my screen. And some of the slides we have are, some of the images are don't want to block them and shrink them up. So again, yeah, please use the chat box. Thank you again. And I'm going to take, for many of you know who Artel is, and for those that do, just give me a couple of minutes here just to really go through and introduce a little bit about Artel and who we are. We're founded in 1981. Some of our main office is in Westford, Mass, just about 30 miles northwest of Boston. We do all of our engineering, manufacturing, and support. Corporate offices are all based out of there. Some of my colleagues on the line work out of that office. We have other locations in Florida. I am based in Tampa. My colleague Andy on the phone is in Colorado. We have other colleagues in California, Arizona, and the United Kingdom. We are an employee-owned business, so that all the employees have ownership within the organization. That gives us all take extra personal pride in the company and the extra commitment to quality, innovation, customer support. We have a really great open line of communication within the organization to share feedback that we get from our customers, and it's really listened to and heard by our management committee. We are a pioneer in media delivery solutions, really starting with video and audio solution over dark fiber. More for that local loop and long distances within the state, and we've grown in really strong within the telecommunications industry. In the U.S., most of the fiber is owned by the telcos, the AT&Ts, the Verizons, the CenturyLinks, the Cox cables. So that has predominantly been our major customer base. And the broadcasters, of course, who want to display all of the different live events, they are the ones that have our product installed within the facilities. So it's usually in the U.S. we find AT&T and Verizon actually installing our product in different broadcasters' facilities. Business is done differently outside the U.S. As you can see from some of the logos, we do a lot of business with China Unicom, CCTV, China Telecom as well. Also for some government agencies such as NASA and a lot of the sporting industries as well. And we base ourselves on experiences and live events. I'm getting a little feedback. I don't know if everybody could mute their microphone. That would be appreciated for the moment. If there's any questions, again, you could type them in the box. And Ralph, thanks for letting other people enter in as they pop up. I'm seeing some people pop up every now and then. Thank you. So we're looking to present amazing experiences for our customers. We do a lot of live events. We were talking earlier, if you want earlier on our call a little early, we were talking about how sporting events are getting started up again in the U.S., but without any fans, of course. But for the local news, international sports, political events, we've done, as you can see here, thousands upon thousands of events with, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands now of live hours and many IP products deployed with no failures. Our products are really designed to be carrier grade. That's why many customers choose our products. We go through extensive testing from power supply load sharing, fan noise, hot swappable cards and power supplies, AC and DC capabilities in many of our products for power support. And as you can see, here's just a small sample of some of the live events that Artel participates in on an annual basis, from the Golden Globes, Academy Awards, different other political conventions, sporting events. All these are driven by Artel. Again, most people, we're not in the master control rooms typically. We may not be that glitzy glamour company that is in the master control room, but all the different video, audio, and data signals that are running so many live events throughout the U.S. All of the press conferences coming out of the White House are from our president, are on Artel Digilink products. And we've done, what are we responding to? Like most companies, we're responding to migrating to IP, media over IP. Artel has grown organically as well through acquisition. We have a number of product lines I'll get into shortly here where have been developed over the years within Artel. And then there's also been a couple of acquisitions over the last 5 years. We support the delivery of all sorts of media, again, video, audio, and data over fiber, IP. Operation simplicity, we have all of our own GUIs. Most of our products have SNMP capabilities where you could use your other third-party control software. And again, as I mentioned, with our carrier grade, we are designed for mission-critical applications. Quick discussion of our different product lines. Our Digilink is our most well-known product line, deployed in a lot of facilities and studios with our telcos, more data center carrier grade, as I mentioned. Our Infinity Link is really a lower cost version of our Digilink, because our Digilink has certain telco standards that we meet called NEBs that gets into the load sharing, the fan noise and fan airflow, I should say, different chemicals that are used if a card's removed, or that it won't take down a NOC network, network operations center. So we go through extensive testing. There's over 300 tests that we get for this NEB certification. As you can see, these are card-based chassis. You can put in different IP solutions as well as fiber-based solutions. It can mix and match and all be controlled by our GUI. We've recently, as we said, moving more into the IP through an acquisition about 3 years ago. We acquired a company in the United Kingdom called ARG that had developed the Quara PTP switch. So this is a managed precision time protocol switch for audio over IP applications. And then about 5 years ago, Artel acquired a company I had worked for called Communication Specialties, where we made our FiberLink product line, our scan converters, and we're now continuing to expand our FiberLink product line into a 2110 gateway. I know as we get into more remote production, 2110 is becoming more popular, and we also are expanding into single stream 12G SDI products as well. Those are typically more throwdown, but they are card cage based. And now let me move into the highlight of our evening in the presentation in the morning for many of you is our smart media delivery platform. As you can see, it's a card-based solution. This will go into either our DigiLink or InfinityLink chassis that you saw on the prior slide. We have won some awards for this product and been nominated for awards for its capabilities. One of the main reasons that we have been nominated and won some awards is really the first bullet here on this slide is where we have incorporated a layer 2-3 switching engine within this card. So if depending on your network, for small networks, you don't need to worry about external switching requirements. Everything can be done for your IP transport within our smart platform. Again, it is carrier grade, can be used throughout in all sorts of different networks. We started originally with our uncompressed model, what we call our SMPTE ST22 suite, and we support all the versions of SMPTE 2022 up to -7, which is the hitless switching for redundancy, which really became popular, I guess, in the Rio de Janeiro Olympics, where ESPN was using hitless switching to go from Rio de Janeiro up to their Bristol, Connecticut facility. And finding the challenge for that one was finding truly separate paths where no nodes crossed over in the IP world. And as I mentioned earlier as well, we have now released our J2K for compression requirements, where you may not have the bandwidth within that network that is being used. Now, around the world, I know many of you operate in countries that you have plenty of fiber, so you don't need to worry about compression. You have pretty much unlimited bandwidth, and there are other people that may not have as much fiber available, and they need to use managed networks, and they do need the compression. We've worked on some projects where people want to link multiple sports stadiums together, and they only have approximately 1 gig to connect multiple stadiums. So they want to use compression. So each stadium's coming out at about 100 megabits. So they don't exceed the gigabit path. So that's where J2K is one simple example comes into play. Also, as you go through, you'll notice when I'm mentioning SMPTE, of course, that's a published standard. J2K comes out of the Video Service Forum for TR01. So Artel has always founded our technology on interoperability to allow customers to choose best of breed and the exact features and functions that manufacturers build in to their products. So we have done extensive interop testing with many different manufacturers, which I'll highlight. Some of the benefits of our product is it is a software-defined product. So you deploy the hardware once and you change the functions within the software. So we have a couple of very large FPGAs, so you can load multiple different mirror images of the software, and then depending on the project, if you're in more of a portable solution for an OB truck, you can load the uncompressed for one application, and then maybe you're at another facility where you need to use J2K compression. We're providing a bridge for SDI to go into native IP implementations. Everything you would see in a normal IP switch, we're giving you control over. QoS, VLAN tagging. We have the ability to also do traffic management. We'll talk a little bit about bandwidth management. We have multiple chassis in our product lines that this will work with. Our DigiLink 4360 is a 12-slot solution, so you can get up to 6 of the smart platform cards in that. Our IL6000 chassis is a 4-slot, so you can get 2 of the smart cards in there. We offer in 2 of our chassis also backplane switching, which is kind of eliminates the need, depending on your application. If you have even more video sources coming in, but you only want to transport maybe the 4 that we can do through our smart platform, you can ingest 20 in our IL6000 and up to 60 in our 4360, and then through our control software, tell the video which channel you want to go to the active transport, in this case for the smart. So it is designed to attach seamlessly to your IP network, as I meant, having the layer 2-3 switching engine, so there is no need for external elements. And as I've said a few times, it also is carrier grade product for specific environments. We'll talk about the architecture here. As I said, as you can see also, it is a 2 stacked up board module, and we have 2 cards, specifically one for doing all the IT and switching capabilities and one for all the video. The video that we support is everything from ASI up to 3G SDI. You have 4 ports. It is auto sensing for all of the video capabilities coming in. The limitation is you can get up to 3 gigs, 3G signals, because right now our trunk ports handle a maximum of 10 gig of traffic. The data card or IT card has the layer 2-3 switching complex, as well as our trunk ports and our Ethernet ports. Right now, the Ethernet ports support 1 gig. We are looking at expanding that to 10 gig. You'll see some asterisks on the next few slides, and the asterisk is talking about future release. The Ethernet trunking ports originally were designed for 10 gig, but now we have recently enabled 1 gig capability. For example, I'm working on an ASI application in Europe where there is no need to go to 10 gigs. So just keeping everything at ASI, you can get multiple ASIs all over the 1 gig trunk. So again, the switch we use is a 120 gig Ethernet switch, which gives us the flexibility to expand to the 10 gig Ethernet ports, and also to put them together in parallel to maybe in the future you'll see coming up to make the 20 gig to handle 12G. And then the video board has both of the cards have different clocking complexes and the different video signals. They are auto sensing again, and as you can see, the programmable from the FPGA, as I said, we have the SMPTE 2022 J2K, we're looking at TICO, we're looking at JPEG XS, we're looking at 12G streaming as well. So all these will be able to be upgraded through our FPGA. So in essence, you could have multiple licenses for different flavors of the smart, depending on what you need your transport to be and what you need your inputs and outputs to be. So talking about the uncompressed version, our 2022 version right now, again, you get 4 uncompressed video signals all the way ASI up to 3G. And this is where we kind of highlighted that you can do a maximum of 3 3Gs because of the 10 gig trunk limitation right now. It is auto sensing, and they're all independent. Question that comes up a lot. So you could have ASI on one input, SD, HD, 3G. They don't have to all be the same inputs. The same with the data that we'll talk about also. The data ports, the 4 Ethernet ports are also independent. They don't have to match up. We do, as I mentioned earlier, support all of the SMPTE ST22 standards up to -7, which includes forward error correction for ASI and SDI. We do, of course, as I mentioned, supporting all of what you would expect from an IP product, unicast, multicast, IGMP, the VLAN tagging, service and carrier tagging is available within this product as well. And then to the J2K version, as I mentioned, the interoperability and the standard for that is the VSF TR01 standard for JPEG 2000. And in this case, since ASI is already compressed, it doesn't take an ASI input, but it will take SD, HD, 3G. And we'll get into showing in the next slide the different amount of compression that we offer. And again, all the video is auto sensing. Again, you could set the trunks. I have some slides showing that to either 10 gig now or 1 gig. The Ethernet ports right now are all set for 1 gig, and we do have bandwidth management. Some things that come up depending on the customer, we do support standard frames and jumbo frames. And then when we get into the hitless switching, the 2022-7, there's different classifications for skewing, class A, B, and C. And the skewing really has to do with how long you're transporting over IP, whether you're going maybe a few kilometers, hundreds of kilometers, or thousands of kilometers. They all fall into different classifications, and we do support them all. Also, we do have an excellent white paper on our website that talks about hitless switching that Raphael, our VP of Product Management, who's on the phone, wrote. So you may want to download that as well through our website. Again, we talked about bandwidth management, depending on the pipe that you have to go out with, or some of our customers actually want to do bandwidth limitation. If they're renting this out to a customer, or renting, I should say, the trunk ports, and they only want to offer HD capability, you actually have the ability through the configuration to set the video input to only SD, only HD, only 3G, or all of the above. So you could actually configure and set the units up on a port-by-port basis for what video standards you want to allow your customer to use, so they don't potentially exceed any bandwidth capabilities. And then the different video formats are listed on our data sheets as well, but this gives you the full highlight. We're doing the 1080p up to 50, 5994, the 1080i, 720p's, all the traditional HD standards that you will see out there. We do support all of the audio embedding through. We don't do the embedding, but if you have audio embedded in any of the SDI, HD, 3G streams, as you can see how many pairs of audio that you can get, up to 8 for HD and 3G. And then as far as the amount of encoding for SD and HD, you can go down to 75 megabit, down to 75 megabit, or keep it lighter compressed up to 200 megabit. With 3G, you're getting down to 100 megabit to 400 megabit. I've been asked many times, is there a sweet spot? What's best? I've said this numerous times. It's in the eye of the beholder. Some people say for 3G, you want to keep it around 200 megabit, for HD around 100 megabit, where it's closer to visually lossless. But again, it really depends if it's sports, if it's static news. It depends, partially on the event, partially on the engineer that's viewing this and configuring this. We support all the ancillary data as well being transported. As you can see, the different closed caption, the teletext, the time code, all of that will be passed through this seamlessly. Also, in whether any of the versions are Ethernet ports, since they're handling the 1 gig of Ethernet data, whatever you're putting in that Ethernet path, we don't change any of that format. So for an example, we have some products in our portfolio that will convert ASI or SD to a 1 gig IP path. So you could actually get even more SDs and ASIs through our SMART by using our, for example, our DLC 410 card that will allow you to put even more ASIs and SDs through this trunk as well. Also through our PTP product, our Quora that I mentioned, we can get AES-67 audio converted to a gigabit path to go through our Ethernet ports as well. Breaking down a couple of things about the IT, our switch card on this. As I mentioned before, with the jumbo frames and the standard frames, the bandwidth limiting. I have some screens that kind of show you could actually turn off some of the Ethernet ports. So if you want to get more of your bandwidth taken up through the video, maybe you want multiple 3Gs and multiple HDs, so you don't have as much of the bandwidth left for data, and you only want to have one of your data ports active. You could also kill the traffic through our control to that to make sure you're not oversubscribing. I mentioned one thing I should mention too with forward error correction that we talk about. Forward error correction, of course, usually adds a little bit of headroom here. So again, you'd really need to understand you don't have to use forward error correction, but if you do, you may need a little bit additional bandwidth as well. The VLAN tagging on this, you could have a double tag, single tagged, untagged, really depends on your requirements. The data traffic, as we say here, is tagged with an outer service tag. Our trunk ports, we have the ability now to do the 10 gig and 1 gig, as I mentioned. What I alluded to earlier, we're looking at doing 2 independent links for the trunks if you don't need the hitless switching, for a total of 20 gig, because we need that if we want to be able to support 12G streams through this without any compression. So that is coming in a future revision of the product as well. Some of the competitive features that we have, as I mentioned, this is a product that meets different interop standards. So people will ask about different competitive solutions that are out there. What we do and what we see as some of our advantages is prioritization of traffic. So you can independently tag video, data, in the control and give some of those priorities on your network. The bandwidth policing, as I mentioned, for the data ports, the different QoS profiles, the flow, you can control the flow of the traffic and give it different priorities. The configuration through our DL manager, which we'll get into shortly, is very simple, straightforward, and we have the SNMP capabilities. We can upload new profiles once you have this card deployed. As we come out with new software profiles, you can download that. It'll be available through our website once the license is purchased. And you could have, we're selling the software as a permanent license. So what we do differently than some of our competitors, if you want to enable, once you buy the J2K version, you have J2K capabilities for all 4 of the video ports. You're not buying a license per port. People have asked me about temporary licenses. That may be a model that we move to in the future. But right now, the model that we're going with is once you buy a license for whether it's uncompressed or compressed, that enables all of the video ports, all the data ports, all the trunk ports. There's nothing else that will have to be purchased or enabled to get you up and running. The card also does operate. It gets configured either as a transmitter or receiver if you're using the uncompressed, or as an encoder decoder for the J2K. So it's a single card. It's not a separate card depending on transmit and receive. So if you have multiple cards, depending on your application, if you need to do multicasting, you could set multiple cards up as receive, decodes, and fewer as encodes, again, depending on the network that you have requirements for. So originally, all the software functions are already loaded in the card, depending on what you purchase from us upfront. And again, if there's any applications that you have working on, you could reach out to myself directly, to Kevin Dowd. I'll have my contact information at the end of this as well. And I believe I emailed everybody earlier with my contact information to remind them what the Microsoft Teams link was for this. So you can just respond to that email. Of course, we have applications that come up where people don't want the data control. They want to have more density for the video. So we have, as a future product, also mapped out to do a video-only card where the trunk ports would now be moved to the base card. So there won't be a layer 2-3 switching engine built in, but this will give you more density. So you can, in essence, have 12 smart cards in our DigiLink chassis to give you 48 ports of video within one chassis. So it was still all of the, unicast, multicast, auto sensing for the video, the 1 gig, 10 gig trunks, depending if you're going to do this for J2K compression or uncompressed, will be available. You can see this highlighted here as well. We do this with a lot of our DigiLink InfinityLink cards. We actually have on the front panel, depending on how the rack is installed, the monitor port. So you could hook up a monitor. If you can't get to the back of the rack, you could hook up a small little external monitor and then hit the channel select button just to get confidence that all of the video ports are enabled and working properly. Are there any questions anybody has as of now? Not that I can see them, because I'm not having the chat room. Are you seeing anything coming through there, Andy, Rolf, that have been popped up?
No, no questions yet. Yeah, I've been looking.
Okay, thanks, Rob. Appreciate it. So we'll get into
Andrew just raised his hand.
Okay.
I don't see anything new though.
Okay. All
I
right.
see the original question. That was it. You answered it.
Okay.
All right. Yep. Thank you. Thank you. So I want to give everybody a look and feel for how simple this is to configure and what our GUI looks like. We have what we call DL Manager, also IL Manager, depending on whether you're using our DigiLink or InfinityLink chassis, but this control software looks 100% the same. So this is what I kind of highlighted as the personality, how you configure the personality of the card. And as you can see in the middle bottom here, where it says Smart Personality, if you have both profiles for 2022 and JPEG 2000 loaded, you can simply, by a push of a button, tell this card the profile, the personality that you want to have enabled. And you can see here as well, channel A, B, C, D as part of the configuration, the different Ethernet ports. We'll get into looking at some of that as well in some of these slides moving forward. This is really giving you the module status. So this gives you a little more detailed information. So right now, this would tell me that you would be, I'd be looking at one of our cards set up for JPEG 2000 and the decoder side. As you can see, it'll tell you what the different IP addresses are. You have your primary and secondary IP address, the MAC addresses. It tells you, shows you here if there's any alarms. We have full alarming capabilities through our GUI here. And then in this case, I took a shot where it shows you the status of the different 4 video channels coming in. You could see this is just coming from one of our lab units where we have some 1080i coming through. It's showing that the video is locked. It shows you the different audio groups that it's set for embedding and transporting the audio. The one thing that is not highlighted here, but it is on many of our slides, we basically have a manual built into our GUI. So if you ever see a question mark and not sure what a function is, you can just click on the question mark and that'll actually tell you more detail with some of the acronyms in, like with the PID, which you could do for the PIDs for the priority IDs and such, and other definitions that you may like. You could see here too, I mentioned earlier, forward error correction, the FEC here under the video format, if you're using any forward error correction at all. So we're doing our best to give you as much information on some of these different slides. For the alarming, not that there's any alarms here now, but you can get into our diagnostics page. Besides getting the serial number, it tells you the different software versions that are being run and the hardware revision, the FPGA code that's being run, all the different MAC addresses. If there are any SFPs or SFP pluses installed, it actually gives you the status of that. It will read and give you the appropriate TX and RX power if it is an Artel SFP. We've qualified and approved our own line of SFPs. Will other third-party SFPs or SFP pluses work? They may, but we don't guarantee that. And we won't give you full, model numbers and the power levels will not come through other third-party SFPs or SFP pluses. We also have copper SFPs and SFP pluses as well, depending, we have optical and copper, depending on how far away you may be from your local switch or your trunk. As you can see over on data port D on the far lower right here, we have one of our copper SFPs that's called our DLSE 45. So we give you a lot of feedback here on this, the temperature internally of the FPGA. So there's a lot of feedback and diagnostics. If there's ever a question, one of our engineers may get online and ask you to take screenshots of some of these pages or of the alarming pages to see what what is going on with the configuration. So here, this shows how I've changed in this one, our board from a decoder to an encoder to show you how you would configure for hitless switching. So this is now an encoder. As you can see in the middle, here's the question marks I was referring to earlier. If you click on any of these question marks, it'll actually give you a definition of what you're going to find in this module status. The seamless hitless protection, as you can see, is enabled. You could also disable the alarms if you don't want any alarms to be shown. And then, of course, the MAC address, static IP addresses, this is where you would start setting up, your multiple IP configuration that you would need as well. The video compression rates is very simple again. As I said, it's done on a port by port basis for the 4 video ports. And as you can see, we give you a drop-down menu for SD, HD, and 3G, and these are the allowed rates I was mentioning. So if you actually uncheck those boxes, that means your customer won't have the ability to use any of those incoming video rates from SD up to 3G. You would have the ability to do this drop-down menu. It goes in about 5 megabit increments to choose between those limits that I had mentioned before, from 50 up to 200 or 100 up to 400 for 3G. And again, it talks about the different audio groups. If you want audio enabled, you would click this and set what groups that you would want as well. And then there's the ID, the packet ID for the ancillary data at the bottom, as you see in this screenshot. To configure the Ethernet ports, as I mentioned, you can enable or disable the different ports as well, whether it's a trunk port, whether it's one of the data ports. As you can see, this is one screenshot that shows the trunk ports as well as the user data ports. We're using traditional IP standards as far as ingress and egress and the TPID profiles. Again, you could set up different alarms for the SFPs if you want. This is where you would choose the trunk. For the trunks, you could see the configuration between 10 gig or 1 gig, and then whether you want that port enabled. We have some customers where they're only using one of the trunk ports. They don't want to do the hitless switching. So that port, they would disable that. But of course, in the future, if they need to have an application where they want that enabled, very simple to just click and enable that. Same for the data ports as well. You can enable the data ports. It is fixed at 1 gig. But again, if you're using more of the bandwidth for the video, you may want to disable the data port bandwidth, or just disable the ports in general so you don't over subscribe to the trunk capabilities. Here, this is a powerful page as well, kind of showing the switch statistics. People want to know if they're getting, good packets, bad packets. If you have multicast set up, it's telling you if the multicast packets are going as well for the regular data ports, for the trunk ports. There's a lot of information that you can get. Obviously, we don't have for this screenshot. We didn't have a lot of information connected at that point. But, again, it really shows, if there's packets that have been recovered, not recovered. There's a lot of information through some of our different diagnostics and statistics pages that are available within our DL and IL manager. Is there anything else that you may think of as far as control and configuration that anybody have any questions on before I get to some user applications that we've worked on? No? Okay, well, while you think, I'm going to take a sip of water, excuse me. And support a local university, University of South Florida, where one of my kids went to. I usually wear my UCF shirt to talk where one of my other kids went to college. And we'll get into talking about a few different applications that we've worked on. And of course, many of you probably know when you're getting into doing IP deployment, some people are doing hybrid capabilities where you still may be using some fiber, maybe using some IP where it's not a full greenfield. And this is an application that we deployed in the country of Cyprus, where they're really doing a hybrid. They have some video using a mix of all of our product lines almost here. It really was a great application. They're using some of our FiberLink SDI transmitters, 3G HD SDI transmitters for short 5 kilometer, 9 kilometer runs from different stadiums. This is actually multiple soccer stadiums. I don't have the full drawing on here, but there's about 5 soccer stadiums across the country that they were connecting here. And in the green is where our smart card was used. So from one of the stadiums, they actually took a couple of HD feeds, went into a different location where they needed to use our smart because they were really exceeding traditional fiber runs. They were going 78 kilometers to another location where they had some of their own repeaters, network repeaters, and then going another 91 kilometers to the smart in their Nicosia head end, to where they're doing within the head end, they're going to a separate production studio to add all the graphics and such like that. So this is a nice application where they're using, depending on the distances, they're using some of our InfinityLink product, some of our switching capabilities that I mentioned earlier. As you can see in the Nicosia head end, I mentioned our 60 by 60 switch capability in our DigiLink chassis. That's our DLX 001. So they're ingesting multiple videos coming from all the locations through that chassis and then switching some of them to different locations to their, they want to go to their primary production area and then also their secondary production area in case there's any failures. So they are right now, they're only using one of the trunk ports for the smart, but of course they can expand this to hitless switching if they would like in the future. But they didn't want to invest in the second path because with hitless switching, you really want to have truly independent networks without any nodes or anything crossing to make the hitless switching effective. And for those that may not be familiar with the hitless switching really will actually take up to a 3 millisecond loss of signal and automatically switch back and forth seamlessly between trunk A and trunk B. So it's really a great technology. For a sports application network that we're involved in, again, another hybrid application of using our smart with some of our other DigiLink products as well. This customer was really getting into UHD, so they were transporting some UHD through some of our products across their network, and then they were using our I was talking about the Ethernet ports before. They were doing some audio and some other data configuration that they needed to get across their network on the Ethernet ports of the smart. And then the smart was taking in just traditional HD feeds from one stadium back into their main studio. So using the smart is really allowing them to increase their IP traffic. They had a lot of other needs for different data transfer, file transfer, between the locations as well. So we're able to handle that all within our smart. So since they were just running HD, 4 channels of HD, gets you up to the 6 gig. And then that means that gave them a full 1 gig for the 4 data ports as well. And we had other data traffic, our DLC, just talk about some of our other products. Our DLC 205 is a Ethernet aggregator, so you can put multiple Ethernet signals through that. We also have down at the bottom, our 156, that'll do 6 HDs over 1 strand of fiber. We use TDM multiplexing in that. So again, we have a whole range. Our smart could handle our SFP plus trunk ports. We could actually do CWDM for those, DWDM, WDM, depending on what your network requirements are for that. Artel is known for our multiplexing, our CWDM and DWDM capabilities to be able to put hundreds of HDs down one single strand of fiber. And then we've all been reading a lot during this COVID season, and I hope everybody remains healthy and is doing well through this. Should have opened up with that, but we've done a lot of remote production applications, and here's an example. This is showing some CalRec equipment. We've done a lot of work with CalRec on the audio side with our Quara PTP switch, and this just lended us to get involved with our Smart as well. So for some of their products that CalRec calls their RP1 is their remote production unit that has SDI capabilities built into it, and they actually handle the audio embedding and de-embedding. So they're taking their SDI streams and putting that into, example, our IL6000 chassis that has a couple of Smart modules, and then we're going over the network to the from the remote location into their studio. You can, if you need separate PTP, we can do PTP over a WAN as long as you have a Grandmaster with GPS on both sides, which this is showing. We could also handle the PTP over a WAN network. So it depends if you want to have external audio or add external audio with the embedded audio. So of course the PTP would go through our Ethernet, our 1 gig Ethernet trunk ports as well. We'll support the AES67, the 2110-30. So this is another nice example in today's current phase of remote production. And then you could also add in, this is doing it all over 2022. I mentioned earlier one of our new FiberLink products, it's a throwdown box for 2110. It'll take in HD or 3G for 2110 remote production. And then I want to just take a moment to answer any questions that may have come up, and thank you again for your time. Again, my contact information is here. Everybody that is attended and registered, I will send a copy of this presentation. I believe Kevin already has a copy that he could send out to contacts today because it's a little late for me. I don't think I'm going to stay up much later to start sending this out. We do have multiple white papers, as I mentioned, on our website that talk about the hitless switching. They talk about PTP. We have 2 on PTP if you have needs for PTP. We have lots of different diagrams, all of it, SNMP. I always get the question about SNMP. All of our MIBs are on our website under the support page as well, so you can download the MIBs to implement SNMP capabilities into our products for control as well. And I'll just pause for a moment to see if there's any questions I can answer that may not have been addressed during this presentation. All right, I'll take that as a no, and I will turn off my camera and I'll kind of just see what we got here in the chat. And I see that just wanted to again take a moment to thank everybody for attending. I'll let everybody get on with their day. The data sheets for the product are on our website. So feel free to that. We do have an online portal if you want to get a personal view of the Smart as well. Actually, I think I have that online right now. If I go, let's see here, just in closing, let me get back here. And if I get back to share my screen, if anybody wants to copy down this IP address that you can see on my screen now, 50.245.45.7, this is actually a live online InfinityLink chassis with 2 of our smart cards installed. So you'll get to be able to drive, as you can see me clicking around here right now. We actually give you an exact view of the chassis of our switch module that I mentioned in here too. It talks about, shows you some of the capabilities of the switch and of the backplane, kind of showing where you could send the different signals to. So I welcome you to, again, take down this IP address. There is no username or password for access. And you can see the drill into the configurations as you see me hopping around here for the smart. So I welcome you to do that as well. And thank you everybody. And please feel free to reach out via email. I appreciate you all taking the time. We will also send a link for the recorded version of this if you want to pass that on to any customers, colleagues, and then we will also I'll send out a copy of the presentation tomorrow as well.
Thanks, Paul. Yep, that was very thorough. I think that's why we
Okay.
didn't have many questions.
All right,
good.
all right, yeah,
But
yeah,
anybody can also contact me
yes,
in the Asia region, Hong Kong time, anytime as well, and we'll answer your questions as we can. We also have demo units coming out to the region, which will, I think the first stop will be in Beijing. So those of you that dial in from Shanghai or Beijing will have some demo units in the field here that you can test as well with customers. So,
great.
yep. Thank you.
And I see Henry asked about the link for the white papers and MIBs. Henry, I got you covered there. I'm just getting that here. I will get you that information tomorrow, no problem. MIBs and white papers. All right, everybody, I really appreciate the time. Have a wonderful day. Thank you again. And Rolf, I'll let you stop the recording and let you get to bed. Joanne, thanks for staying up late. Andy, thanks for coming in. Kevin, appreciate your support. Tony,
Actually,
everybody.
when
Igor,
I try your
thanks.
IP address, it asks for username password.
That address, it's asking for a password?
Yeah, username. The front page is okay, the first page is okay, but when I go into configuration setup or anything, then it asks for password.
Yes, you could, yes. Going into use admin, it's admin. I know which you're trying to get in to look at the IP setup and that,
Or
yes.
configuration.
Yeah, let me get back to that screen here. Like if you go to this IP setup that I'm showing now, yes. For that, you'll have, it should be, let me just test it right now. I believe it is admin and then
Yeah, I think it is. Yep.
admin and admin. Yep, it's admin and admin.
Right,
Yep.
thank you.
You're welcome. Forgot about that. Thanks
Minor
for bringing
detail.
that to my attention. Yeah, minor, exactly right. Minor detail. All right. Excellent. Yes. Thank you again, everybody. Have a great day, and I'll be talking to you soon. Kevin, thanks again.
Thanks, Paul.
Be well. Take care,
Take care.
everybody.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Paul.
Paul.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a good night.
Thanks, Paul. Thank you, Paul. Bye-bye.
Thank you, bye.